Streaming doesn't just hurt cable and satellite companies like Charter Communications or Dish Network. It also punishes entertainment networks like Viacom, which owns MTV, Comedy Central, Paramount Pictures. Companies like Viacom sell its channels and programs to third-party providers. And this past week, when Viacom told its investors sales to cable and streaming services would be down this quarter, well, the stock plunged. So why is Viacom and other entertainment companies' content less appealing these days? Let's bring in Jason Siegel, co-founder and chief digital officer at Bluetext. Jason, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Look, it's obvious why streaming services sting cable providers. That seems very obvious to me. It's less obvious to me why entertainment divisions like Viacom, AMC, NBC Universal are also suffering. Why are these companies having a hard time switching from selling to cable to selling to streaming services?
What we're seeing happen is the pendulum is swinging. In the past, they always took advantage of just trying to sell volume of channels. And the consumer always said, I really only care about 6 channels. And they, just like AOL, millions of minutes, millions of hours, and TV channels, thousands of channels, that's not important. It's about quality. And that's why Netflix is really starting to dominate and take over, because they have the quality content that the customer and the consumer really wants. So it's a quality game, not a quantity game. And that pendulum is swinging back to the skinny bundle, which is really, really exciting for the consumer. Now, how many skinny bundles that people want before it starts to not even be financially attractive to the consumer, that's what's going to be the next challenge, I believe.
Right, because we don't want to be spending a lot of money when we know that we can spend $7 on Netflix as opposed to a huge cable bill. Look, new media has completely transformed the way that we look at media in general, all across the board. How are more traditional forms trying to fight back, and really, do they have a fighting chance?
Well, the interesting thing is the skinny bundles, they started to look at CNBC. When you look at CNBC, you've got animated characters like Jim Cramer, great graphs and tickers. But when you look at a brand like Cheddar, they could basically produce the same content, but they don't have the expensive contracts of people like Cramer integrated into it. So you can put Cheddar in with another premium channel, and it's just as attractive, because the young millennials, they don't have the brand equity or allegiance to a CNBC like the baby boomers. So this whole shift is happening, and the new channels are emerging and taking market share from the old titans.
But the old titans seem to be doubling down on this, like cable news, versus us, like who utilizes more online forms. You know, we have a lot more people here at RT. We do broadcast on cable, but we use Facebook, we use YouTube, we have streaming on our website, we have our app. So what happens when you don't keep up and surpass the times, really? Because it's all about staying ahead of the trends.
Well, the interesting thing I see happening here is we're seeing a boom in the amount of demand for content creators. And the executives in the ivory towers aren't able to financially and legally engineer their earnings the way they used to. Brands like ESPN, they built business models, gave billions of dollars to Major League Baseball, but then they had an assumption of the number of subscribers that they'd be able to monetize against. They're not there anymore. So that's a big challenge for them. Content creators are now in huge demand because Netflix and Amazon, they all want to create proprietary content. So IP is really where it's at. From a macroeconomic standpoint, it's great for the economy. More and more people get jobs. You need writers, editors, After Effects producers, and then marketing agencies create viral buzz for this content. So it's really exciting from a macroeconomic standpoint. What's happening in the media industry is really creating a boom. Now, unfortunately, the CEOs aren't able to report great earnings, but on the other side, the jobs report can look really, really appealing.
Look, let's talk about the consumer, though. We have a ton of options. They're behind you. I won't make you look around. But do we have too many options?
That's going to be where the pendulum's going to swing back. Right now, people say, I don't need my 6,000 channels with my Verizon Fios. I'll get 6 bundles with Netflix, Hulu, etc., HBO Go. But when the economics of that and they start creeping up their cost, the consumer will start to say, you know what? this is actually getting to be the same problem I had before. And the pendulum will keep swinging back and forth. I believe where all this is going is the Netflixes and the other content buyers will start to look at artificial intelligence, avatar technology, machine learning as a way to produce high-quality content without the baked-in costs that make it really difficult to hit the earnings expectations of Wall Street.
Let me ask you this, though. What's your take on the news coming out this week that Disney's going to be pulling its content from Netflix and start not one, but two streaming services of its own? Does it have a landscape for that?
I love that move because what we're seeing is with the Miller World acquisition by Netflix, Netflix says, you know what, we know how to produce great content. Stranger Things, Game of Thrones, we're seeing these brands are able to produce great content. They need the great writers and the great idea people. So they're like, you know what, people, the young generation, they might not know Thor the way maybe baby boomers and Gen X understand who Thor and these characters are. We're going to create great stories with the next generation of characters. And they invest in Miller World, and they're going to go toe-to-toe against Disney, who acquired Marvel, and it's going to be an interesting fight to see what the consumer's attracted to the most.
But what happens to the media landscape when it comes to money being dispersed? When companies like Netflix and Hulu, Amazon Prime, when they push their own original content over the content of licensed movies and shows that they have?
Well, it's going to be really interesting to see if the economics can work out. Netflix is using a debt instrument of over $10 billion, and can they wind up making that work? What we're seeing is ESPN's economics and the way they figured it out, it's looking like it's not going to work out for Disney, and they might want to spin out ESPN. They've given too much money to Major League Baseball and others, and those subscribers aren't there to justify their investment. So now the other, Netflix and others, Amazon is starting to, they just spent a ton of money for Thursday Night Football. Can they wind up making that work? I think they're going to use this as a way to get in the door and show people they could have a competitive entertainment offering, but will they eventually have the same problem as Verizon and the other cable giants? We will see.
Is there money in aggregating all of these choices into one area?
I don't believe so. I think what you're going to see happen is what the skinny bundle is it's premium content and as much B content as possible that they can put in to try to show perceived value. But eventually, Netflix and the others, if they try to take the route of just stacking garbage versus stacking quality content, they'll be perceived back like a Verizon. So they need to keep the quality high, keep their costs in check, and they can take it to the next level and take down the old giants.
We'll see where it goes from here. Jason Siegel, co-founder and chief digital officer at Bluetext. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.